They asked for saviors, but Earth sent its monsters. It was not loud, it did not carry panic or screaming, it did not even sound urgent. That was what made it frightening. The transmission came from far beyond human trade space, crossing empty systems that no one bothered to monitor closely. When it arrived, it triggered no alarms at first. Only a soft indicator blinked on a long-neglected console inside the United Earth listening array. A junior analyst noticed it by accident. At first, the signal looked broken. The language was structured, polite, and carefully translated into several known formats. It repeated itself every 30 minutes unchanged, as if the sender feared even a small error might ruin everything. The message was short. We ask for assistance. We ask for saviors. Please do not send conquerors. The analyst read it 3 times before forwarding it. Within 12 hours, the message was in front of every major authority on Earth. The species calling themselves the Talari Collective were not unknown. Humanity had encountered them decades earlier, quiet traitors, deeply cooperative, almost painfully respectful. They believed strongly in consensus. Every decision required agreement. Every action required moral approval. They were kind, and they were failing. The data attached to the message was vast. Environmental breakdowns, infrastructure slowdowns, social paralysis. Entire planets waiting for permission to act while their systems collapsed around them. But there was no enemy, no war, no invasion, just a problem they could not solve. Human scientists reviewed the data and grew uneasy. Economists frowned. Sociologists became silent. AI advisors ran simulations and returned the same conclusion every time. The Talari were dying because they could not choose. They waited for unity while time ran out. They did not need weapons. They needed change. That made Earth hesitate. The United Earth Council assembled in emergency session. Screens filled the circular chamber, each showing a different expert, leader, or observer. No one raised their voice. No one rushed to speak. Everyone understood what the Talari were asking. And everyone understood what answering meant. They want saviors, one diplomat said carefully. They are afraid of aggression, they fear dominance. They should, another replied. Most species do. A scientist leaned forward. Their systems reward harmony over action. They avoid conflict so completely that they can't respond to crisis. Sending advisors won't help. They will debate the advice until it's too late. So what do we send? Someone asked. The room stayed quiet. Finally, an older woman spoke. She was not a politician. She was a historical risk analyst. We don't send heroes, she said. Heroes try to be liked. Several heads turned toward her. We send the ones who make decisions when no one wants to, she continued. The ones who accept blame, the ones who end arguments by ending options. The word hung in the air, unspoken but understood. Monsters, not monsters of violence, not killers, but people with reputations that made others uncomfortable. The kind of humans who survived Earth's worst years. The Talari delegation waited on their capital station, a graceful structure of light and curves orbiting a pale blue world. They had prepared carefully for humanity's arrival. Symbols of peace, open spaces, shared meals. They expected soldiers or saints. What arrived instead confused them. The human vessel was modest. No weapons were visible. No dramatic display followed its docking. The doors opened quietly. 7 humans stepped forward. They did not wear uniforms. Their clothing was plain. Their expressions were calm, unreadable. They carried no visible authority symbols. One of the Talari observers shifted uneasily. These are the saviors, one asked softly. They do not look inspiring, another replied. The humans introduced themselves without ceremony. Their leader, a woman named Mara Holt, spoke simply. We are here to assess, she said. Then we will act. The Talari guide hesitated. You will first meet our consensus circle. All major decisions must. Yes, Holt said gently. We've read your protocols. Her tone was polite. Respectful, still, something about it made the Talari uncomfortable. As the days passed, discomfort grew. The humans listened more than they spoke. They attended meetings that lasted hours and asked only a few questions. When Talari leaders argued, the humans did not interrupt. They took notes, too many notes. One Talari official finally asked the question others were afraid to say. Why were you chosen? He asked. The human beside Holt answered without offense. Because when systems fail, he said, we don't wait for agreement. The Talari frowned. But agreement is how we avoid harm. Yes, the human replied, And sometimes harm comes anyway. That answer spread quietly through the station. Deep in Earth's records, each human sent had a label: unpopular, ruthless with data, ethically inflexible. Emotionally detached under pressure, they were not admired. They were tolerated, used only when everything else failed. They had shut down cities to save nations, ended programs people loved because they did not work, spoken truths that caused outrage but prevented collapse. They were not kind, they were effective. The Taleri began to realize something was wrong when the humans requested unrestricted access. To everything? The Taleri asked. Yes, Holt said. Every system, every process, every law. That would take approval from all planetary councils. Holt nodded. Then you should begin now. Her tone was calm, but the implication was terrifying. Time mattered. By the end of the first week, rumors spread across the Taleri worlds. The humans were dangerous, not because they threatened, but because they noticed things others ignored. They asked why traditions existed, why outdated systems remained sacred, why no one was responsible when plans failed. They did not insult Taleri culture, they questioned it. That was worse. Observers from other species watched closely. Some sent warnings, some sent inquiries to Earth. Why these humans? Why not diplomats? Why not peace envoys? Earth's response was always the same. These are not conquerors, the reply said. They are what remains after survival. On the 10th day, the Taleri Consensus Circle finally granted partial access. It was already too late to feel safe. Mara Holt stood before the assembled Taleri leaders and spoke calmly. You asked for saviors, she said. We came. The Taleri felt no relief, only fear, because for the first time someone was willing to decide. And deep down, the Taleri realized the truth. They had not asked Earth for help. They had asked Earth to take responsibility. And Earth had answered. Wide halls curved like flowing water. Soft light filled the air, changing color with the time of day. Conversations were quiet, careful, and polite. Even disagreement was gentle, wrapped in respectful words. Since the humans arrived, the station felt different. Nothing had changed physically. The lights were the same, the halls were the same, but something invisible had entered the space, something heavy. The humans, they did not demand attention. They did not raise their voices or push their presence forward. They simply existed, and that made many Taleri uneasy. The Taleri were used to beings who tried to please others. The humans did not. Every morning, the human team gathered in a small observation room. No Taleri were invited. Through the glass walls, Taleri officials could see them speaking quietly, sharing data, marking screens with symbols they did not explain. They did not argue. That alone was strange. Taleri meetings were long because everyone spoke. Everyone had a voice. Everyone had concerns. Humans, it seemed, decided who spoke before they even began. One Taleri analyst watched them closely and whispered to a colleague, "They act like the decision already exists." The colleague replied nervously, "Maybe it does." Mara Holt spent most of her time listening. She sat through council meetings that lasted entire cycles. Taleri leaders discussed resource shortages, system failures, and cultural fears. They spoke of balance and harmony, of not rushing change. Holt never interrupted. She simply wrote. When the meeting ended, a Taleri elder finally approached her. "You have said nothing," the elder said kindly. "Do you not disagree?" Holt looked up. "I do," she replied. The elder smiled politely. "Then why stay silent?" "Because you are still speaking," Holt said. "When you are done, I will." The smile faded. Across the station, another human named Elias Chen reviewed infrastructure maps. He did not comment on their beauty or complexity. He only asked questions. "Why are there 7 approval layers for emergency power rerouting?" he asked. A Taleri engineer answered proudly, "To ensure fairness and prevent misuse." "And when the approvals take too long?" Chen asked. The engineer hesitated. "Then we discuss improvements." Chen nodded and wrote something down. He did not argue. That frightened the engineer more than anger would have. Soon, rumors began to spread. The humans were cold. The humans did not care about feelings. The humans were judging them. Taleri children whispered that the humans were Earth monsters, beings who broke things to fix them. Parents tried to calm them, but even adults felt it. The humans smiled when appropriate. They were polite. They thanked their hosts. But they never apologized for asking uncomfortable questions. A formal cultural exchange was arranged to ease tensions. The Taleri prepared a shared gathering hall. Music played softly. Symbolic foods were offered. Talari representatives spoke of unity, cooperation, and trust. The humans listened. When it was their turn to speak, the Talari waited for inspiring words. Mara Holt stood. "On Earth," she said simply, "we survived because we failed many times." The room was quiet. "We learned that being good does not mean being effective," she continued. "And being effective does not always feel good." A Talari diplomat shifted nervously. "Are you saying our values are wrong?" "No," Holt replied. "I am saying values do not stop collapse." That sentence echoed through the hall long after the gathering ended. Back on Earth, reactions were mixed. Some citizens were proud, others were ashamed. "Why send them?" one public channel demanded. "Why send people known for destroying traditions?" an older historian answered calmly. "Because traditions are fragile," she said. "Survival is not." Earth had learned that lesson painfully. On the Talari homeworld, things began to change, not because the humans acted, but because they prepared. They requested simulations, then counter-simulations, then worst-case projections. They identified systems that could not be saved and systems that must be saved at all costs. They marked certain processes as emotionally protected. The Talari did not like that phrase. "What does that mean?" one official asked. "It means," Holt said, "that no one wants to touch it because it feels important. That makes it dangerous." The Talari exchanged worried looks. The true fear began when the humans asked for authority, not total authority, just temporary decision priority during emergencies. The request moved slowly through Talari councils. Debate followed debate. Objections were raised. What if the humans made the wrong choice? What if they damaged Talari culture? What if they acted too fast? During one meeting, a Talari leader finally asked the question aloud. "Why do humans believe they should decide for others?" The answer came from a different human this time, a quiet woman named Noor Rahman. "We don't believe we should," she said. "We believe someone must." Silence followed. Observers from other species grew alarmed. Messages arrived warning the Talari to be careful. Humans change systems permanently. Humans do not stop once they begin. Humans call it help. The Talari leadership felt torn. They needed assistance. But this felt like surrender, not to force, but to certainty. The humans were not threatening. They were confident. That was worse. Late one cycle, a junior Talari coordinator approached Elias Chen privately. "Why do others call you monsters?" the Talari asked quietly. Chen considered the question. "Because," he said, "we accept outcomes others refuse to imagine." The Talari swallowed. "Do you enjoy it?" Chen shook his head. "No, but enjoyment is not relevant." That answer followed the Talari home that night and disturbed their rest. By the end of the second week, the Talari consensus circle reached a fragile decision. Limited emergency authority would be granted to the human team. The announcement was careful, the wording was soft, the approval was conditional, but the meaning was clear. For the first time in Talari history, outsiders would be allowed to act without full agreement. The humans acknowledged the decision with polite thanks. No celebration, no reassurance, only preparation. Mara Holt stood alone at a station window, watching the Talari world turn slowly below. A Talari official joined her. "You scare us," the official admitted. Holt nodded. "That means you understand." "Understand what?" the Talari asked. "That what comes next will hurt," Holt said. "And that pretending otherwise would be a lie." The Talari looked away at their peaceful world. "And if we regret this?" they asked. Holt answered honestly. "Then you will still be alive to regret it." Far across the galaxy, civilizations watched and took notes. Earth had sent no weapons, no armies, no conquerors, only people willing to decide. And the galaxy began to realize something unsettling. When humanity was asked for saviors, it did not send angels. It sent the ones forged by failure. And they were just getting started. It was not dramatic. No alarms screamed. No systems exploded. That was the problem. A minor power imbalance appeared in one of the Talari's outer climate stations. Normally, it would have been corrected within minutes. Instead, the issue moved slowly through the approval layers, department to department, council to council. Each group agreed the problem was real. Each group also agreed it was not yet serious enough to act alone. So they waited. The humans noticed immediately. Elias Chen stood in the monitoring room, watching the delay grow longer with each update. "They're still discussing," a Talari technician said, confused. "Everyone agrees action is needed. They are just deciding how to agree." Chen looked at the timer on the screen. That station has 6 hours before failure, he said calmly. The technician blinked. But consensus will be reached before then. Chen did not answer. He only watched. When the station finally shut down, the damage was not catastrophic, but it was avoidable. Entire agricultural zones lost temperature control. Recovery would take weeks. Food reserves dropped below safe margins. Talari leaders were upset, but also relieved. It could have been worse, one said. Myra Holt stood quietly at the edge of the room. It will be, she replied. Every eye turned toward her. The humans requested an immediate full review, not of the station, of Talari decision culture. The request alone caused tension. Some Talari leaders resisted. Others agreed reluctantly. The review was approved under the new emergency authority. What the humans found disturbed even the Talari themselves. Every system assumed delay was safer than risk. Every law assumed unity mattered more than speed. Responsibility was shared so evenly that no one truly held it. Failure belonged to everyone. Which meant it belonged to no one. During a closed meeting, Holt spoke plainly. Your crisis is not technical, she said. It is behavioral. A Talari elder bristled. We have survived centuries this way. Yes, Holt said, in stable times. She brought up a projection on the screen. It showed multiple small failures spreading, linking together. You are facing compound stress, she continued. Slow collapse, no single disaster, just many small ones arriving faster than you can agree. The room grew quiet. A Talari counselor asked carefully, what do you call this problem? The humans exchanged looks. Finally, Noor Rahman answered. Decision paralysis, she said. Fear of being wrong outweighing fear of doing nothing. The Talari did not like that word. The hardest truth came next. Elias Chen spoke again. Your system rewards harmony, he said, but harmony without action becomes denial. A Talari official raised their voice slightly, a rare thing. So what do you suggest, that we abandon who we are? No, Chen replied. We suggest you survive who you are. That sentence spread quickly through Talari networks. Some found it offensive. Others found it terrifyingly accurate. Across the Talari world, small delays continued to grow. Transport schedules slipped. Resource redistribution slowed. Infrastructure repairs waited for moral review. The humans did not intervene yet. They watched. They mapped patterns. They waited for the truth to become impossible to ignore. When the second failure hit, it was larger. A water purification network stalled due to conflicting environmental priorities. Councils debated whether to reroute supply from culturally significant regions. By the time agreement was reached, contamination levels had risen too high. Again, no one was blamed. Again, the damage could have been avoided. This time, the Talari public noticed. Fear spread, not panic, but quiet doubt. People began asking questions their culture had trained them not to ask. Who decides? Why did no one act? Why are the humans silent? A Talari journalist finally confronted Myra Holt. You said you came to help, the journalist said, but you let this happen. Yes, Holt replied. The journalist stiffened. Then you admit failure. No, Holt said calmly. I admit demonstration. The journalist did not understand, not yet. Behind closed doors, the human team debated, not whether to act, but when. Too early and they'll reject it, Noor said. Too late and recovery becomes impossible, Chen replied. Holt listened, then made the decision. We intervene after the next delay, she said, but only once. The others nodded. They trusted her judgment, even knowing the consequences would be severe. The next delay came faster than expected. A planetary logistics hub stalled during a supply reroute. Multiple councils argued over fairness, long-term balance, and cultural respect. The timer ticked. This time the humans acted. Myra Holt invoked emergency authority. One decision, one override, no speeches, no debates. The supply routes changed instantly. Resources flowed where they were needed most. The system stabilized. Lives were not lost, but something else was. The Talari response was immediate and emotional. Councils protested. Elders condemned the action. Public forums filled with fear and anger. The humans were accused of arrogance, of cultural violation, of becoming exactly what the Talari feared. Holt accepted the criticism without defense. She only presented data. The comparison was undeniable. With delay, collapse; with action, stability. The truth hurt. A Talari leader confronted Holt privately. You made us feel powerless, they said. Holt met their gaze. No, she replied. You already were. I made it visible. The leader had no answer. That night, Taleri citizens struggled with something new: responsibility. For the first time, they saw that kindness alone was not enough. That consensus could be a shield, but also a cage. The humans had not attacked, they had revealed, and revelation was painful. Messages arrived from other civilizations. Some praised the humans. Others warned the Taleri to remove them immediately. Humans will reshape you, the messages said. They cannot help themselves. Earth sent no response. Earth never argued when history was being written. In a quiet moment, a young Taleri asked Nor Raman a simple question. "Why do you accept being hated?" Nor thought for a long time before answering. "Because," she said, "being liked never saved a civilization." The Taleri did not sleep well after that. By the end of the cycle, the Taleri consensus circle met again. This time, the meeting was shorter. The question was no longer if the humans were right. The question was whether the Taleri were brave enough to change. They looked at the humans, calm, patient, and unyielding, the monsters of Earth, not because they destroyed, but because they refused to lie. And the Taleri realized the truth they had avoided for generations. The greatest threat they faced was not disaster, it was hesitation. And the humans had come to end it. There were no announcements across the Taleri worlds, no grand declarations. No speeches about a new future. Change arrived quietly through lists, schedules, and clear decisions. That was what scared everyone. The humans began with systems, not people. They reviewed emergency protocols and rewrote them into simple chains. One decision led to the next. Responsibility was assigned clearly. Every role had a name beside it. Taleri officials stared at the documents in discomfort. "Only one authority during crisis?" one asked. "Yes," Elias Chen replied, "then many afterward. But what if the authority is wrong?" "Then we learn," Chen said. "But delay teaches nothing." The phrase spread quickly: delay teaches nothing. Some Taleri repeated it angrily, others repeated it quietly late at night. Mara Holt insisted on transparency. Every override decision was logged publicly. Every reason was written in clear, plain language. No emotional language, no blame, just cause and effect. The Taleri public read the logs with growing unease. They were not used to seeing decisions made without moral decoration. The humans did not say, "This is fair." They said, "This works." The difference felt cold. On the third world of the Taleri system, a transportation grid stalled during peak movement hours. Normally, the issue would have gone through multiple review councils. This time, a single Taleri coordinator trained under human guidance made the call. Routes were changed. Schedules were broken. Some regions were delayed so others could move. The grid recovered. Complaints followed, but collapse did not. That night, the coordinator could not sleep. They had acted alone, and nothing terrible had happened. Across the Taleri collective, similar changes began, not imposed, copied. Taleri officials started using human-style decision trees. They practiced making limited scope choices without consensus. They assigned temporary authority and then took it away again. It felt dangerous. It also felt effective. Other civilizations noticed. Observers from nearby systems sent reports filled with concern. The humans are rewriting Taleri culture. They are turning cooperation into command. This is how empires begin. The reports reached Earth. Earth did not deny them. Earth did not answer. A special assembly was called on the Taleri capital station. Representatives from allied species attended remotely. The topic was clear: human methods. A speaker from a neighboring civilization addressed the Taleri leadership. "You invited saviors," they said, "but you accepted judges." Murmurs filled the chamber. Mara Holt was invited to respond. She stood calmly. "We judge outcomes," she said, "not people." "That distinction does not comfort us," the speaker replied. "It shouldn't," Holt said gently. The silence that followed was deep and uneasy. The fear did not come from harm. It came from speed. Humans moved faster than the galaxy was comfortable with. They made decisions before fear could grow into tradition. They acted before arguments became sacred. To many species, this felt unnatural. To humans, it felt familiar. Taleri elders struggled the most. Their entire identity was built on shared agreement, on patience, on the belief that no voice should be silenced. Now they watched as single voices acted, temporarily, responsibly, but alone. One elder spoke to Nor Raman in private. "We are afraid we are becoming like you," the elder admitted. Nor shook her head. "No," she said, "you are becoming capable of surviving yourselves." The elder did not find comfort in that. The humans also changed how failure was discussed. There were no long investigations filled with careful language. When something went wrong, the humans wrote a short report. This decision caused this result. This assumption was wrong. Next time, do this instead. No shame, no ceremony, just learning. Talari officials found this deeply unsettling. Failure was supposed to be shared, softened, and forgiven, not examined so directly. But results improved. On a distant Talari world, a food distribution network faced a sudden imbalance. Under old systems, councils would have debated fairness for days. This time, supplies were redirected immediately to prevent spoilage. Some communities received less. They complained, but no one starved. The complaints faded faster than hunger ever had. Public opinion fractured. Some Talari praised the humans openly. They called the changes necessary overdue, others called them monsters. Humans do not feel, one popular commentator said. They calculate. The comment went viral. Mara Holt saw it and nodded. That's accurate, she said. Her lack of defense alarmed even her own team. Other civilizations grew louder in their warnings. A joint message was sent to the Talari collective. Remove the humans before they reshape you permanently. The Talari leadership debated the message for hours. In the end, they did nothing. That alone was an answer. The true turning point came during a simulated catastrophe. At the humans' request, a full-scale scenario was run across multiple Talari systems. Communication delays, resource shortages, conflicting priorities. Talari teams using old consensus methods failed every simulation. Talari teams using adapted human methods succeeded. The data was clear, undeniable, uncomfortable. A Talari Youth Council member spoke up during the review. If this works, they asked, why did we fear it? The room stayed quiet. Finally, an elder answered, because it asks us to accept guilt. The youth frowned. We already feel guilt when things fail. Yes, the elder said, but now we know who carries it. That was the true fear. The galaxy began to adjust its understanding of humans. They were not violent. They were not cruel. They were worse. They were willing to be wrong in public. They were willing to choose and live with the consequences. Many civilizations avoided that at all costs. Myra Holt received a private message from Earth. Proceed carefully. She replied with a single line. Earth trusted her. The galaxy did not. Late one cycle, Holt stood again by the station window. The Talari world below looked calmer than it had in years. Systems were stabilizing, collapse had slowed. A Talari leader joined her. They fear you, the leader said quietly. Holt nodded. They should. The leader looked startled. You admit that? Yes, Holt replied. Fear is honest. It means they are paying attention. And if they decide you are too dangerous? The leader asked. Holt looked out at the stars. Then they will decide, she said. That is all we ever wanted. Across the galaxy, stories spread. Humans did not save by fighting. Humans did not save by ruling. Humans saved by choosing, and for many civilizations, that was the most frightening method of all, because it meant survival was no longer gentle. It was intentional, and intention carried responsibility. By the end of the cycle, one truth had become clear. The Talari were no longer the same civilization that had asked for help. They were learning something humans had learned long ago. That peace without action was fragile, and that sometimes the real monsters were not those who destroyed, but those who refused to hesitate. There was no single moment when alarms sounded or leaders stood up and declared a new age. Instead, the Talari collective woke up one cycle and realized something felt different. They were not afraid of collapse anymore. They were afraid of choice. The data showed improvement across almost every system. Energy flow stabilized, food networks recovered, transportation delays shortened. Emergency responses became faster and cleaner. Even the most cautious Talari leaders could not deny it. The humans' methods were working. That truth was harder to face than failure. Mara Holt stood before the consensus circle again, but this time the room felt different. The Talari leaders did not look defensive. They looked tired. One of the elders spoke first. You have proven effectiveness, the elder said, but we still do not understand the cause of the original crisis. Holt nodded. Then it's time you did. She gestured and the room darkened. A simple model appeared in the air, Talari society, reduced to lines and points. This is not a disaster, Holt said. It's not an enemy, it's not fate. The model shifted. Delays appeared, decision loops repeated. This is feedback failure, she continued. Your civilization became so focused on avoiding harm that you stopped correcting it. A younger Talari leaned forward. Are you saying we caused this? Yes, Holt replied calmly. The word fell heavily into the room. For generations, Talari philosophy taught that harm came from conflict, force, and imbalance. They believed peace itself was protection. The humans were saying something far worse. That peace could be dangerous. That kindness could enable collapse. Elias Chen stepped forward next. The phenomenon you feared, he said, feeds on delay, on systems that refuse to choose. It grows when responsibility is spread so thin that no one can act. He paused, then added, it does not attack civilizations, it waits for them to stop correcting themselves. The room was silent. Some Talari felt relief, others felt shame. Across the Talari worlds, the explanation spread quickly. This was not a curse. This was not punishment. This was not an external threat. This was stagnation made visible. People reacted differently. Some were angry at the humans for revealing it. Some were angry at their leaders, some were angry at themselves, but no one could deny the truth anymore. The true turn came when the Talari asked a new question, not are the humans right, but can we live without what they taught us? The answer was becoming clear. A planetary council voted to permanently adopt emergency decision roles. Authority would rotate, power would be limited, accountability would be direct. The vote passed, barely. When the announcement reached the human team, none of them celebrated. They only checked the safeguards. Other civilizations reacted strongly. Some withdrew diplomatic ties, calling the Talari corrupted. Others sent secret observers wanting to learn without being seen. A few began quietly rewriting their own protocols. The galaxy was splitting. Not over territory, but over responsibility. One interstellar assembly sent a direct message to Earth. Your people are destabilizing cultures. Earth's reply was short. Cultures that cannot adapt will not survive. The message spread widely. Fear followed it. Among the Talari people, debate filled every public forum. We are losing who we were, some said. We are becoming stronger, others replied. A Talari teacher explained it simply to their students. We are learning when to agree, they said, and when to act. That lesson would have been unthinkable a year ago. Mara Holt met privately with the Talari High Speaker. You have crossed the point of no return, the High Speaker said. Holt nodded. Yes. And if this change breaks us? The High Speaker asked. Holt answered honestly. Then you would have broken anyway, she said, just more politely. The High Speaker did not argue. The final confirmation came from the phenomenon itself. Measurements showed it weakening, not stopping suddenly, not disappearing dramatically, but fading. As delays shortened, as decisions became faster, as feedback loops closed, the invisible pressure receded. The humans watched the data quietly. This is it, Noor Rahman said. They've turned the corner. Or they fall back, Chen replied. Yes, Noor said. That choice is theirs now. A Talari public broadcast invited Mara Holt to speak. Millions watched. She stood calmly, hands at her sides. You asked for saviors, she said. You thought salvation meant protection from pain. She paused. Sometimes salvation means learning why pain happens. The broadcast ended without applause, but it was replayed everywhere. For the first time, Talari history recorded named responsibility. Decisions were signed, mistakes were owned, corrections were fast. It felt sharp. It felt dangerous. It also felt alive. Other civilizations began updating their warnings. Humans were no longer just monsters. They were mirrors, and many did not like what they saw reflected. A Talari child asked their parent one night, "Are humans bad?" The parent thought carefully before answering. "No," they said, "they are honest." The child frowned. "Is that worse?" The parent did not answer. The human team received new instructions from Earth. Prepare for withdrawal. The Talari leadership was stunned. You are leaving? They asked. Yes, Holt replied, soon. But we still need you. Holt shook her head. Then we failed. That frightened them more than any warning. The turn was complete. The Talari no longer needed humans to decide for them. They needed the courage to continue deciding themselves. That was the real gift. And the real burden. As preparations for departure began, the galaxy watched closely. Some civilizations relaxed. Others grew nervous. If humans could teach this, what else could they reveal? Mara Holt stood once more by the window, looking at the Talari world. It was not peaceful, but it was moving. She allowed herself a small breath. This was always the goal, not control, not victory, but momentum. The Talari had asked for saviors. They received teachers they did not want, and learned a lesson they could never forget. That survival was not about being good, it was about being willing, willing to choose, willing to be responsible, willing to live with the result. The galaxy felt the shift, and understood at last why Earth's monsters were feared. Because once the turn was made, there was no going back. Earth had learned long ago that sudden absence could be as dangerous as sudden control. So the human team stayed, watching quietly as the Talari stepped forward on their own. And that was when the real consequences began. At first, the Talari struggled. Decisions were faster now, but speed brought discomfort. Leaders felt exposed. When choices were signed and owned, there was no place to hide mistakes behind shared responsibility. Public trust wavered, not because things were failing, but because people could finally see who was choosing. That visibility frightened them. A supply decision on one world caused temporary shortages in another. The responsible official faced open criticism. In the past, such anger would have been spread across councils and softened by time. Now it landed on one name. The official did not resign. They stood before the public and explained their reasoning. The explanation was not perfect, but it was real. The crowd listened, and then something unexpected happened. The anger faded, not fully, but enough. People realized they preferred a flawed answer to endless waiting. Across Talari space, similar moments unfolded. Arguments became sharper but shorter. Disagreements ended with action, not delay. Mistakes were corrected quickly instead of hidden. The Talari were learning a dangerous skill: adaptation. Other civilizations reacted badly. Several neighboring species withdrew from joint projects with the Talari collective. Cultural exchanges were paused. Trade agreements were reconsidered. Official statements were polite. Private messages were not. You are becoming like them. Humans corrupt cooperation. This is not who you were. The Talari leadership read every message. They did not respond. That silence spoke loudly. On Earth, the human public watched the situation carefully. Some felt pride, others felt discomfort. We changed them, one commentator said, without asking. Another replied, they asked for help. The debate never settled. It never did. The first true test came when a regional Talari council refused to act. Old habits returned. A decision stalled, resources waited, systems strained. The humans did nothing. They had already stepped back. Mara Holt watched the data quietly. This is theirs now, she said. The delay caused losses, not catastrophic but painful. The council reconvened. This time they chose. The lesson was learned the hard way, but it was learned. That moment reached the galaxy faster than any broadcast. The Talari had failed, then corrected. Without humans, fear spread. An interstellar summit was called. Humans were not invited. The topic was clear: how dangerous is humanity? Representatives spoke carefully, choosing words filled with caution. They do not conquer, one said. They do not threaten, another added. But they change things, a third concluded. That was the problem. Change could not be undone. Some civilizations banned human advisors entirely. Others secretly requested human methods through intermediaries. A few began restructuring their systems quietly, hoping no one would notice. The galaxy was dividing, not by alliances, but by courage. The Talari paid a price. They lost some allies. They lost their reputation as the most peaceful species. They gained something else: respect. Not admiration, respect. A Talari historian addressed the public in a widely shared lecture. We believed peace meant never forcing choice, they said. But peace without action is just delay with better language. The words were uncomfortable. They were remembered. The humans prepared to leave. Ships were readied. Data archives were transferred. Final reviews were conducted. The Talari leadership gathered to say goodbye. You will be blamed for this, one leader said to Myra Holt. Holt nodded. We expected that. You may be feared, another added. Yes, Holt said. A pause followed. And yet, the high speaker said quietly, we survived. Holt allowed herself a small smile. That was the agreement, she replied. On the final cycle before departure, a Talari child approached Noor Rahman. Will we become monsters too? The child asked. Noor knelt to their level. No, she said gently. You will become adults. The child considered this. That sounds scary, they said. Yes, Noor agreed, but you grow anyway. The humans left without ceremony, no celebration, no final speech, just quiet departure. The Talari watched their ships disappear into the dark. For a long time, no one spoke. The galaxy waited. Weeks passed, then months. The Taleri did not collapse, they did not become tyrants. They argued, they decided, they adapted. The phenomenon faded further until it was only a historical note. That outcome unsettled everyone. Civilizations that had mocked the Taleri began reviewing their own delays. Some discovered the same weakness, others chose to ignore it. Those choices would matter later. On Earth, the mission was classified as a success, but the word felt incomplete. Success usually came with gratitude. This came with distance. Fear and silence. Earth accepted it. Earth always did. Years later, a new warning circulated among the stars. It was no longer about invasion or war, it was simpler. Do not ask humans for help unless you are ready to change. That warning carried weight. A Taleri scholar wrote the final summary of the era. Humans did not save us by strength, they wrote. They saved us by refusing to lie about who we were. The text became required reading. Not everywhere, but in enough places to matter. Mara Holt never returned to Taleri space. She did not need to, her work was finished. The consequences were no longer hers. They belonged to those who chose to act. The galaxy adjusted its understanding of humanity, not heroes. Not villains, but something more unsettling. A species that survived by facing its own failures and teaching others how painful that could be. The Taleri paid the price of change. They lost innocence. They lost comfort. They gained time, and in the universe, time was everything. The consequences were clear. Humanity had not conquered a single world, yet their influence spread farther than any empire. Because once a civilization learned to choose, it could never unlearn it. Stories like this never do. They continue quietly inside policies, inside lessons, inside the choices people make when no one is watching. The galaxy learned that slowly. Years passed. The Taleri Collective no longer appeared in emergency reports. Their systems were not perfect. Their leaders still argued. Their people still disagreed. But when pressure came, they acted, they chose, and that changed everything. Other civilizations began to notice patterns. Civilizations that adapted survived. Civilizations that waited declined. No wars explained it. No disasters announced it. It was simply momentum, and momentum favored those who decided. The Taleri were invited back into alliances they had lost. Trade resumed. Cultural exchanges reopened, but something had shifted. They were no longer seen as gentle. They were seen as capable. That reputation carried weight. A decade after the humans left, a major interstellar council held a historical review. The topic was simple. The human intervention era. Scholars spoke. Analysts presented data. Observers watched carefully. One phrase appeared again and again. Nonviolent destabilization. That phrase frightened many. A delegate from a cautious species asked the question everyone avoided. Why do humans frighten us more now than when they had weapons? The room stayed silent. Finally, a Taleri representative answered. Because weapons can be resisted, they said, but clarity cannot. The humans had not forced change. They had made stagnation visible, and once seen it could not be unseen. On Earth, the mission became a case study, not celebrated, not hidden, just taught. Young humans studied it in quiet classrooms. They learned that hero stories were rarely true. Saving the day was easy. Living with consequences was hard. Mara Holt retired without ceremony. She refused interviews, declined awards. She returned to a quiet life, advising only when asked. When someone once asked her if she regretted being feared, she answered honestly. No, she said. Fear means they're awake. Across the galaxy, a new cultural warning spread. Parents taught it to children. Leaders whispered it to advisors. Never ask humans for heroes. The full warning was longer. If you ask humans for help, they will not protect your identity. They will not preserve your comfort. They will not lie to keep you calm. They will show you what you are. Some civilizations decided that was unacceptable. They closed their borders. They rejected human contact. They chose comfort. Their futures would be quiet, short. Other civilizations made a different choice. They studied human systems carefully from a distance. They adapted small parts. Emergency authority, clear responsibility, fast correction. They never said where the ideas came from, but they worked. The galaxy did not change all at once. It never does, but it tilted just a little, enough. A Taleri historian wrote the final official record of the crisis. The last lines were simple. We asked for saviors because we feared monsters. We received monsters because we needed saviors. The record was translated into dozens of languages. Not all chose to read it. Those who did remembered it. Long after the phenomenon faded into history, a new crisis emerged in a distant civilization. The details were different. The pattern was the same. They debated, they delayed, they collapsed. Observers watched in silence. Someone asked, "Should we call Earth?" The room went very quiet. The fear was not of invasion, it was of responsibility, because if Earth answered, excuses would end. Humanity did not spread by force. Humanity spread by example, a dangerous one. It showed that survival was not about purity or kindness alone. It was about honesty, and honesty was uncomfortable. In time, the galaxy developed a new classification for species. Not predator, not prey, not advanced or primitive, but something else, deciders. Species who could choose under pressure, species who accepted consequences. Humans were the first. Talari were among the second, others would follow, or not. A Talari child, now grown, studied interstellar policy. During a lecture, they asked their teacher a simple question. "Why didn't the humans stay and lead us?" The teacher smiled gently. "Because leaders who stay too long become crutches," they said, "and humans do not want dependence." The student nodded slowly. That answer felt right. Earth's reputation settled into something strange. Humans were invited less, trusted more, feared quietly. They were no longer seen as saviors. They were seen as catalysts, and catalysts were dangerous. Far from politics and councils, ordinary beings felt the change too. Emergency workers acted faster. Engineers questioned sacred designs. Teachers encouraged difficult questions. No one called it the human way. They just called it necessary. Mara Holt watched the stars one evening from her quiet home. She had no regrets. Regret required wishing for a softer truth. She did not. Humanity had learned long ago that soft truths broke under pressure. Hard truths held. The galaxy learned that too, slowly, painfully, honestly. The final lesson spread without words. When the universe does not give you time to agree, you must choose, and if you cannot choose, someone else will. That was what the galaxy learned to fear, not human strength, not human technology, but human clarity, because clarity removed excuses, and without excuses, only responsibility remained. Humanity never called itself heroic. It never claimed moral superiority. It simply survived long enough to learn something most species avoided. That doing the right thing did not always feel right. That saving a future sometimes meant breaking a past. And that monsters were not those who destroyed, but those who refused to look away. The Talari continued on, changed, alive, choosing. The galaxy watched, remembered, and quietly hoped it would never need to ask Earth for help, because if it did, Earth would answer, and nothing would ever be the same again.